What is up, guys? My name is Tyler. Hey, wait a minute. Well, this is different. Huh. Whoa. Yes. Oh, no. It's safe to say I am not, in fact, trapped inside the world of Alan Wake 2. However, I wish I was, because that game is absolutely insane. Anyway, what is up, guys? My name is Tyler, and today we're taking a look at NVIDIA GeForce Now, a cloud-based gaming service that basically lets you play all your games at max settings. But how? Oh, and before we get started, I want to mention that NVIDIA did provide me access to their Ultimate membership for this video, as well as provided me 2 Backbone 1 mobile controllers. We'll talk more about that later. So I'll be reviewing GeForce Now from that perspective only. That being said, no money exchanged hands, and NVIDIA did not get to review this video before it was uploaded. However, I do want to give a big thanks to them and to Backbone for giving me the opportunity to make this cool video for you guys. So if you enjoy it, please make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Okay, enough legal hoopla. So what is NVIDIA GeForce Now? Well, it's essentially a similar service to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate and PlayStation Plus Premium. It allows you access to a library of games that you can then stream to your device, whether that be a handheld, a PC, a phone, or even a smart TV. The major difference with GeForce Now is that instead of paying a subscription for a catalog of games to play, you're paying for access to high-end hardware. What I mean by that is that GeForce Now allows you to only play the games you already own, but enhances them by giving you the ability to play them on super high-end NVIDIA PCs, some of which are equipped with RTX 4080s. This means if you've been dying to play the new Alan Wake 2, like me, at max settings, or maybe you're still waiting to play the new Cyberpunk patch with ray tracing, now you can, and for much cheaper than buying or building your own high-end PC. Not to mention that there's not a single handheld on the market that can really play AAA titles with ray tracing enabled. So, sorry guys, this is a bit out of your pay grade. In any case, for my review, I primarily use GeForce Now on both my iPhone and my Pixel 7 Pro, along with the Backbone 1, because I personally enjoy playing my games in bed. For those of you who don't know what the Backbone is, it's essentially a controller for your phone. It has USB-C power, so you can charge your phone through it, and comes with a nifty little software that allows you to manage all your games, including GeForce Now. That being said, in my time using the Backbone, I noticed that the experience was a bit better on Android. This goes for NVIDIA GeForce Now as well, mainly because GeForce Now has an app on Android, but not on iOS at the time of writing this. This means that if you want to play on iOS, you'll have to use the browser on your phone in order to access GeForce Now. It still works just as good once you're in game, just not as clean of a setup as on Android. Hopefully we'll see GeForce Now come out on iOS soon, but for now, I recommend just saving the link to your home screen so it's easy to access. Overall, the Backbone feels pretty good in the hand, albeit a little small. The controller parts feel about as big as Joy-Cons, so if you struggle to hold those, then you'll probably struggle here too. However, I didn't have much fatigue after a few hours of gaming, so personally, I think it'll be just fine for a 2 to 3 hour gaming session, so long as you're playing a single player title that doesn't require a ton of sweaty inputs. And speaking of the Backbone, NVIDIA is running a super cool promo right now. If you're a member of GeForce Now, you can receive 30% off your purchase of a Backbone by opting in with the link in the description. And if you're not a member, well, I don't think I need to tell you what to do now, do I? Just make sure to come back here once you're done signing up. As far as GeForce Now goes, wow. I'll be completely honest. When NVIDIA reached out to me for this, I was a little confused as to who GeForce Now would be for. If you remember my review of the G Cloud, I completely dissed the idea of having a sole device that could only stream games instead of play them locally. And while I still stand by my statement that both the G Cloud and the PlayStation Portal are silly devices for the price, GeForce Now definitely changed my opinion on streaming my games over playing them locally. And here's why. So let's say you don't have a top-of-the-line gaming PC with an RTX 4080, which I think is safe to assume is a lot of us. And I mean, how many times have you dreamt of being able to play your games at max settings? Probably a fair bit. Not to mention that running ray tracing at 4K locally is almost certainly a death sentence for your frame rate. So what do? Well, that's where GeForce Now comes in. Just launch it on your PC or your phone, log into the platform that has your game on it, and crank those settings. I was able to max out Alan Wake 2 with ray tracing, and while I was seemingly limited to 60 FPS on my end, the system was running it at over 100 frames per second, which for a single player title like that is plenty. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't have a ton of time to test every kind of game on the catalog, let alone every kind of device, but several hours playing Alan Wake 2 on a phone in bed, and I completely forgot I was streaming the game. Latency was extremely well managed, and I only ever got a couple hiccups and one single game crash. Input delay was nearly zero and felt as though I was literally playing directly on my phone. And as far as appearance, even though I was limited to 1080p on my phone, it honestly looked just as good on the small screen as it did running locally on my personal PC at 4K on my G8 Neo. For the record, I do have a machine with a 4080, but before you get up in arms, when I tell you the difference is indiscernible, I mean it. Sure, you're going to get some color banding and gradient areas due to the frames having to be compressed and sent over the internet, but as far as sheer fidelity and ray tracing quality, it's really good, especially when you consider my PC is nearly $4,000 and a GeForce Now Ultimate subscription is only $20 a month or $100 for 6 months. So let's do some quick math. For roughly $300 a year, adding in the cost of the backbone, which is about $100, you basically get the most top of the line PC to play all your games. A brand new PC today with a 4080 is going to cost you at least $2,000 or more. With those numbers, you could be playing games on GeForce Now for nearly 7 years before you've spent enough to just buy a PC yourself. That's a pretty solid value if you ask me, especially assuming NVIDIA is updating these machines year over year. But there's a catch. Of course, there's always a catch. Well, it's not NVIDIA's fault, but we don't live in a perfect world here, guys. So here's a few things I noticed while using GeForce Now that I think are important to note, as well as some things to consider before you toss your PC to the trash. First of all, this is a streaming service after all, so your internet connection and speed play a huge role in your experience. A strong 5 GHz connection is recommended, especially if you plan to stream in 4K or at 1080p 120 frames per second for more competitive games, which interestingly enough, NVIDIA does have a setting for competitive streaming quality in case you need it. This leads me to my next note that it appears that GeForce Now will only stream at a maximum resolution that will fit your display. This means if you're on a phone, it'll likely top out at 1080p depending on the aspect ratio of your device. I won't dive too deep into it, but just know that you probably won't see 4K as a resolution option unless you're streaming on a 4K capable display. The same goes for HDR. Not only that, but the game you're playing also has to have support for these features. So ray tracing, 4K, and HDR all need to be compatible with the game through GeForce Now in order for you to enable or use those settings. Typically before you launch a game though, you'll be able to see which games support them, so keep that in mind before you dive in wondering why you can't crank the resolution or why HDR is just grayed out. Now, while GeForce Now only lets you play games you already own, it does allow you to play some free-to-play games like Genshin Impact and Fortnite. Not personally interesting to me, but if it's all you play, then you could likely save a fair bit of cash switching to GeForce Now, or at the very least, avoid upgrading your PC for a bit longer. And while the catalog is ever growing, don't be surprised if some of your favorites are not yet supported. This will likely be the thing that stops you from switching to GeForce Now, because at the end of the day, the whole point is to be able to play your games at the best quality possible. And well, if your favorite games aren't yet available or supported, then it kind of defeats the purpose, right? So before upgrading to a paid subscription, I highly recommend perusing the catalog or syncing your game accounts to see which titles are available. This leads me to probably my biggest gripe with GeForce Now: signing in and connecting your accounts. The first few times I tried to launch a game, I was met with login screen after login screen, which was quite frustrating to deal with, especially on a phone screen. I had to constantly tab out and back in, copying and pasting passwords, verification codes, etc. However, since I've logged in a couple times, it seems like it's become less of an issue to the point where I can easily launch Alan Wake 2 without logging into Epic Games each time, which I guess begs the question: how secure is it? While I don't have the answer to that, as far as I can tell, each time you launch a game, you basically are locked into a private session on one of NVIDIA's machines. What you do in there is locked to you, and once you disconnect from the session, it's like you were never there. That being said, you're limited to only logging into your game accounts. Using the machine for anything else appeared to be limited or locked, so don't expect a full-blown remote PC to play around in. NVIDIA did a pretty good job limiting what you can do in there. Reminds me of my college esports days where I had to constantly monitor what my students were doing on their PCs. Kids, am I right? In the end though, NVIDIA GeForce Now is a really impressive service. It gives anyone with a strong internet connection the ability to play most of their games at a quality much higher than they could on their own system. Not only that, but it gives you yet another way to play your games on the couch or in bed without the need for a dedicated handheld device to do so. And while I still prefer to play my games locally, I think if you're someone who maybe doesn't have the best PC but still wants to enjoy all their games at max settings, then GeForce Now could be an excellent option that not only improves your gaming experience, but saves you money while doing it. But that's gonna be it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button. And as always, make sure to subscribe to see more content like this. You can follow me on X, TikTok, Instagram at XXIV_concept. That's 24 concept. Learn your Roman numerals. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. The light did shut off. I knew it was going to. I was literally, the whole time I was sitting here, I was like, what are the odds that that Pavo tube stays on the whole time? I have no idea when it shut off. It probably just randomly shut off in the middle of this. So there's gonna be a cut. Either I'm gonna be saying a line and it's just gonna go, it's just gonna turn off, or I'm gonna say it's gonna be on and then I'm gonna cut to a shot where it's not on. If you know where it does it, mark it down below. If you've watched this far, I want you to tell me where, at what timestamp does that light turn off? Crazy. Video games.